Joined by the Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, now newly appointed, of course. Congratulations, Ms Cooper. Thanks for joining us this morning. How surprised would you be that there were drug users in the House of Commons?
It's not something I've ever seen, but I think the Speaker of the House of Commons is absolutely right to say this has to be referred to the Metropolitan Police. You can't have an institution that's supposed to be law making and in fact having within it so much law breaking. So I think it's absolutely right that this is properly investigated.
And what do you think about the government's suggestion that people who are convicted of Class A drug crime should, in time, potentially lose their passports and their driving licences?
Well, we used to have all kinds of arrangements for drug treatment orders, for different kinds of responses through the courts. And a lot of that has just fallen into disuse. So we've gone backwards really over the last 10 years. We've had, for example, a real loss of neighbourhood policing. So that means there aren't the police there to deal with that drug dealer on the corner or that's standing outside the local school. We've also had a 40% drop in drug treatment in some areas as well. So big drops in drug treatment. And it's that combination, I think, of the lack of action on policing, pulling that back, the lack of drug treatment, the cuts there, and then the lack of coordination through the courts for some of these measures is why we have gone badly backwards. So the thing we're looking for out of this strategy today is whether we'll see action on each of those areas, coordinated approach through the courts, but also the investment in the treatment that we need, get people back into treatment and in the criminal justice system. So you've actually got the police to take this action, because there's no point in talking about any of this if the police just aren't there to actually identify anyone that's got a problem.
We believe that in Scotland, if somebody is convicted of a Class A drug crime, that they should probably get a fine from the police rather than it be taken any further, taking the pressure off the prison system. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's a bit unclear what the different sentencing proposals are that the government's coming forward with. That's something we're going to have to look at today. At the moment, there's a whole range of different things you can have, but we used to have a system where the courts, we had at one point specialist drug courts, we had a system where the courts could say, right, we're going to say testing or treatment is part of your sentence, is part of what the court will order. And that has just fallen massively into disuse. Some of those used to be used a lot if you go back 10 years. And hasn't been much more recently. So that's why some of this, it's unclear whether the government is actually just trying to reinvent a wheel that, frankly, they really should have had rolling 10 years ago. And we've had this lost decade almost. So I hope that they're going to be doing the right thing on some of these things, using the courts in the right way, but also using the police and public health in the right way. If you don't have that mix of things together, you don't solve the problem.
Omicron variant, are we overreacting? No hospitalisations, no deaths. It transpires that we've known about it in the UK since October.
Well, I really hope that the Omicron variant will turn out not to be a problem for our vaccine programme, not to be a problem in terms of the response to COVID that we've already got. But I think we have to take seriously the scientists when they say, look, this is a different new variant. We don't know enough about it. And it is because it is significantly different. We have to slow the spread before the vaccine, the boosters are fully rolled out and before we've done the research. So get the boosters rolled out, but slow the spread of the virus. That's of the variant. That's why I called for the testing, just proper testing before you get on an aeroplane from anywhere in the world, so that you've actually been tested before you're on a busy flight with a lot of other people. The government waited 2 weeks to bring those tests in. I think that was irresponsible, but I hope they're going to get on top of it now.
I did put that to the policing minister and I said, don't these tests need to stay in place until we've seen the back of this variant? Because otherwise you are literally closing the door every time the horse has bolted. And he said there has to be a balance between what we do and how people manage to go about their everyday lives.
Well, I think the thing about testing is that we are getting used to that now. Lots of people do lateral flow tests for kids for school, people for different work, for different jobs, a lot of the time. So it just seems to me common sense that you have a lateral flow test before you get on an aeroplane that could have loads and loads of people. Otherwise, by the time you might discover that you've got Omicron, it could be a week later after all of the delayed testing once you get back, by which time all of those people you were on an aeroplane with, all of those people you were on a train or a tube or a bus with will then have also spread right across the country. So testing just seems to be a simple common sense thing to do. That's why I just can't understand why the government has been so resistant to it.
Gathering at number 10 Downing Street on the 18th of December last year, the police commissioner in London, Cressida Dick, says that she has not been told about it. You're the shadow Home Secretary. Why have you not raised it with her?
Well, I understood this had been raised with her, and I think, to be honest, she really should have noticed it in the newspapers because there's been a lot of reporting on it. I think the government is been disgraceful in the way they're responding to this. They keep saying, "Oh well, we don't recognise reports. Oh well, the rules were followed." How can the rules have been followed if they had a party on December the 18th when they were telling everybody else to cancel their parties, when they were telling everybody else to cancel Christmas? And it is classic, one rule for them, another for everyone else. They cannot do this, especially in a public health pandemic. They have to sustain trust in the things that they ask everybody else to do and not just think they can rip up the rules for themselves. And that means they also have to be honest about what they've done rather than this shenanigans, trying to pretend, oh, nothing happened, but never quite saying it. And everybody knows there's something dodgy going on.
But back to my point, if the most important police officer in the country says she has not been told about it, and you are an incredibly important politician in the House of Commons, the leader when it comes to the Home Office and policing for your party, are you going to lift the phone up to her today and say, OK, I'm raising it with you now?
Well, we may need to follow up on this, but I just don't understand that response because, I understand that other MPs have raised it directly with her and also that it has been in the newspapers repeatedly. So I just simply don't understand this idea of them not being aware of it. Now, they certainly obviously not been told about it by the government because the government seems to be just trying to hide the fact that this happened. I think it's just come back to the core question, which is they have to just stick with the rules that they make for everyone else. They have to respect them and they have to respect everybody else across the country who they are asking to make sacrifices. And it's that failure to do so. It's not just about one party. It's about the impact it has on trust right across the country. And at the moment, actually, we cannot trust this Prime Minister. We cannot trust this government on anything like this.
But just let me press that point, if I may, because she was on the radio on Friday and she did say to my old mate, Nick Ferrari, I have not had any communication about this personally. It's going to take you 2 seconds to lift the phone to her. She's going to take your call, isn't she?
Well, I wanted to find out what's happened because my understanding is that this has actually been raised with her and she has been sent questions about this by other MPs, by other London MPs as well.
But you'll look into it.
So I will look into what has happened here.
OK, it's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.